Well, we did it again. We attempted to make another Hollywood level film. This time, I tried to keep it short. I tried to keep it around 3 minutes. We didn't go too big with this one. I spent basically $0 on this one. No 25-minute huge action thrillers this time, although this is kind of in that same thriller genre. Basically, I was thinking, right, I have been making these little test films over the past 2 years now, trying to get better at making films, short films, feature films, etc. And there's always this thought in my head, this constant thing of like, when I become a filmmaker, when I become a director or a Hollywood level cinematographer, or whatever opportunities may arise from doing these types of tests and films and doing this sort of practice. And it got me thinking about life kind of generally. We're gonna get a little holistic here. We're gonna go a little bit broader spectrum here when we're talking about this, but if you want to be a filmmaker, go be a filmmaker. Now, you've heard this 1,000 times that now is better than ever to go make yourself a movie. We've been hearing that for like the last decade now. And a lot of people have proven that point very well. And I think it's just time to be that. If you want to be a filmmaker, be a filmmaker. And there's not much more to it. Just start making films. The idea here is to start making them as much as I possibly can. Now, I'm in the fortunate position where I have this YouTube channel. I have a place to put my films. I have a place for people to watch my films and kind of a reason to make films. I get to make films and then I get to make videos like this, behind the scenes content for those films, right? So it's a very symbiotic relationship and I don't want to take that for granted. So here we are going to make another short film. So this year, that's the goal, just to make movies. I'm writing another feature film. I've got 2 more short films lined up, another feature film potentially lined up with someone else, with Ryan Scott, who I did the last feature film I just shot with. So a lot of things on the docket right now, a lot of film opportunity. So for this first one, this idea just came to me out of the blue. It's kind of a take on a genre that maybe you're familiar with, but I don't want to talk about that here now since the film isn't quite finished. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't, so you can see that short film when it comes out here in the next week or so. But this idea came to me just kind of out of the blue. I was sitting there at my computer. I don't know, I really do not know why. I don't know what I was watching or what I was researching, and it just kind of all flooded into my head. So I just immediately opened up Celtics. That's the screenwriting software that I use. It's pretty reasonably priced and it has all the features that you really need to get going when writing scripts. And I just wrote it all out. Now, it's mostly action. There's actually only 1 line of dialogue in the whole film, which I thought was a really fun exercise. Really what I try to do when I make these short films is trying to make something that's about all showing and not telling. I actually love dialogue. I love movies with good dialogue. One of my favorite movies ever is The Social Network, and that's just Aaron Sorkin dialogue, just over 2 hours straight. And I love that style of filmmaking, but for now, I want to keep practicing on building suspense with just imagery. You know that I just love David Fincher. I love how many shots are on screen in any given minute to try to help build context and tell the story and really unfold the information in a way that just keeps you captivated. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. So I wrote out these 3 pages very quickly, actually about 3.5 pages, and it's almost all action lines. And a little tip when you are writing screenplays like this, break up that action. Don't do dense blocks of action. Pretty much every shot has its own line. And I use capital letters a lot to kind of emphasize points and really put that action on paper. So when I was sending this around to people that I was hoping that would help me work on it, I didn't ask for a lot of help on this one. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna go make it. Maybe me and a couple other people will go make it. But as I sent the script to people were like, I'm in, I wanna help. And I really think that is a testament to how the script is kind of laid out. It's something very short. It's something you can get the point of really quick and visualize it in your head because of those action lines broken out that way. So it's just a quick tip if you are writing action in your screenplays. I was just so happy that this idea that came to my mind was such a simple idea. It was such an executable idea. I really only wrote in 1 location. I ended up turning it into 2, but it's 2 locations, which means that we were probably able to shoot the whole thing in 1 shooting day. Now, it does all take place at night, which was pretty unfortunate. So we drove out in the middle of nowhere and we started shooting, and it took about, 8 hours or so to get most of the shots. We didn't actually get all the shots, but by 2:30 a.m. in the morning, it was just time to go home. But something else I really wanted to exercise and try out on this one was letting the film breathe. What I found out with some of my last projects is that I would script it out pretty quick. I would get just a couple drafts in and I would say, all right, let's go make this thing. And what I really think is fun about filmmaking is that it's this ever evolving art form. It's this craft that you don't just write it out once and then go execute on that. You actually need to write it again, maybe send it to some people, get some feedback, maybe write it again, and you just kind of keep polishing this thing. And you probably heard this before, that you basically make the movie 3 times, right? You write it, you shoot it, and you edit it. And I really wanted to lean into that fact. So step 1 was writing it, sending it around. People liked it, they wanted to make it. And then I knew that I couldn't get all my crew together for about a week, but I thought, well, I need to shoot some of it. So I was like, I can shoot the second location basically just with the skeleton crew. And even though the second location is like the end of the film, I shot it first. Now it's out of order. That can make things a little bit more challenging, but it basically just kind of gets us going. It just walks us into the shallow end. And then thinking about this one scene in kind of a vacuum, I was like, what would make this scene good on its own, regardless of the rest of the film, kind of, right? And so originally I wrote this scene in a car, but then I was like, well, what do I have access to? What can make this cheap? And obviously I do have a car, but I was like, who do I have? So my VFX person and director, Ryan Scott, who I just shot this last feature film with, you can go check out that behind the scenes on my channel below. I was like, I really like his office. He's got a good vibe in his office. And I was like, we will just use this office instead of using a car. So I kind of pivoted a little bit. I let the story breathe and let what I had available to me kind of dictate where I went a little bit. You gotta be more fluid with these things. I find that in the past, I maybe was too structured and too precious with the script. Now the script matters a lot, and you should definitely trust the script, and that was one thing that I learned on Flea, my last big short film, is that there was times I was on set, I wasn't even looking at the script. Now you definitely need to keep looking at your script because it's like your Bible, but be willing to have a plan and then break that plan. So I did. I pivoted a little bit on the location and a little bit about what I had in mind. I wanted the end scene to be just like a couple shots, but I ended up making it a few more just to have that coverage and just to see what it would look like in the edit. See how it would change and how it would inspire me, even going into shooting the principal photography, the bulk of the film, on a later date. So it was really fun. Also, it was just so handy having Ryan Scott and being in his office, because there was a couple things I was like, man, you know what? There's like a timer in a shot. And I was like, I really wish this timer could be a little bit more elevated, could look a little cooler. And he was like, well, I'll just make one for you real quick. I have the assets. So while I'm setting up the lighting and me and my AC Colton Berry are kind of setting things up, Ryan just like makes this timer on the spot in his computer and just like throws it over to his phone. And we were able to use that immediately. And it was just really fun to be able to build those assets just so quickly. And this is what I mean. These were things that I was like, I can do later, or I can compromise, like what's available. And just talking with my crew and collaborating in that way, we were able to come up with something that was even better. And it just really went to show how letting these things breathe and evolve, you can get something that you maybe didn't plan before and looks a lot better. So then just in a few hours, we had that scene shot, and we're already embodying being a filmmaker. We've already shot some shots. We've already got some shots in the can for a film. You don't have to wait around to make movies. Even if you fail, do what I've done. I have a lot of humility. Make films and fail and put them up on YouTube, put them up online. See what kind of response you get and learn from them. So another thing that's really helpful by doing it this way, breaking things up, not shooting everything back to back in a day. Although I do believe in when like making like a feature film and stuff, you do need to, once the machine's kind of going, the filmmaking machine, the crew is there, you're in a, you're at your location, you want to try to get as much as you can while you're there. But with that as well, it's really helpful to kind of break up your shooting. Shoot a couple scenes, edit those scenes together, see what's missing, see what feels good about those shots, feels like what could be better. And that way, when you go into your next leg of shooting, you can improve on those. And it's what's really fun about a film, short film or feature film, short or long, you can take it in little chunks and build upon that and make it something better as you go along. So really shooting that first scene was critical on this. It just kind of got us going so we could figure out the tone from the cinematography standpoint and, kind of dial in the color. And then I was able to send that last scene to a bunch of the crew, and they were able to kind of understand the vision of the film going forward. It's almost like a proof of concept when you can shoot one little scene for the bigger project, have something to show to people. But then it was on to shooting the full principal photography. And the plan here was just to take it easy and have fun. We got out to our location out in the middle of nowhere pretty early. We got everything we could set up. Of course, Kyle had to bring his entire coffee setup. Us coffee nerds take our coffee very seriously.
So this is a Columbia Pink Bourbon varietal from Boxcar Coffee. My friend Sam Graham roasted this.
Shout out Sam Graham.
Shout out Sam Graham. Notes are peach, orange, pineapple, and honey.
And we had an entire coffee cart dedicated to keeping us awake through the night and into the dark hours of the evening.
Okay, so we're running the fellow Aiden and the fellow Ode grinder through the DJI Power 1000 power station. Shout out to DJI.
And what's good about this coming to the location earlier when you are shooting at night is that you can start blocking things out. I had not met the actor before. I'd only talked to him on Instagram. I was able to hang out with the actor for a little bit, give him some direction and some context, and start blocking out the scene so he knew exactly what he had to do in the scene before the night fell.
We need to block out the scene so we actually know what we're doing before we roll, because this is all action. So if you kind of miss a beat, it might throw off the whole story because there's no dialogue. So we just need to like walk through it.
You don't want to do that right when the night hits. Give yourself some time. That way you can be kind of ahead of it going into it. So we're able to kind of pre-light, get everything off the truck, everything off my grip van, get the camera set up. Oh, by the way, we did shoot this on my new red Monstro, and we shot it with the Thipox cinema lenses. Really loving these lenses. I think for cinema, I don't love how much they breathe, but outside of that, they're just so tiny and compact, have such a nice image to them, really pretty bokeh, and they just take that like kind of bigger camera package I have and really slim it down. So I'm really liking these lenses. I definitely recommend the Thipox if you're looking to get some cinema lenses right now. Now I could have taken my DZO RL lenses, but they're just so big, and most of this takes place in a car instead of a little small SUV. So it just made sense to have the smallest package we could. Thought about shooting it on the Komodo, but I'm just really falling in love with how the Monstro looks, so we just ended up going with the Monstro. But we'll probably talk more about the cinematography in the part 2 of this behind the scenes that will come out when I launch the actual short film. So and another thing I did on this one is, because I had the time in between, it was like basically a week in between of getting the first scene and then going into shooting the second leg of filming, I went really far with this. Some of my last films and stuff, I did storyboard and shot list to a degree. I always try to use the script kind of as my shot list, but for this one, I really went over the top with it.
Color coordinated shot list. And then setup, like not every storyboard, but setups. Because I don't want to miss anything. We're only gonna be here one day. I shot listed every single shot I could think of that would be in the edit. And I color coded them using a highlighter just in a way that would help me be like, okay, let's shoot these first and then move to these. Just to kind of speed up production. Now, if you have a production coordinator or producer, line producer, whatever on your film, they can often help you do this sort of thing, or an AD can help you do this.
According to this list, we have absolutely none in the back. So we're working on kind of these 3 shots right now. But it's the first shot, it takes time.
You want to maximize your time. Have a bunch of friends out there, filmmaking friends out there coming to help me for free just because it's fun to make films, right? Making films with your friends is fun, and so they came to hang out, but I didn't want to take their time lightly. And so I was like, we need to have all this stuff figured out. So I storyboarded everything. I created a checklist. Then I broke those out into which ones we should shoot first. And then on top of that, I also storyboarded each setup. So it is not every shot, because I knew we were gonna get coverage, kind of create little masters of everything so we had room in the edit to kind of jump back to shots if we need to. So I basically just drew out on the storyboards the main setups, like the main angles. That way I could hand it to my AD, Matt Miller, and he could know what we were going to move to next. And we just really just keep us in line. The thing that happened a lot on some of the other short films is that I would get into the edit and be like, why didn't we get that shot? We were right there, we had the camera up, and like, those things just get forgotten sometimes if you don't have a shot list. So as someone that was directing and DPing and producing, it was really helpful for me to have this kind of list that I can hand off to someone else and get done. Now, of course, if you're just directing or DPing yourself, one or the other, it makes it a lot easier because you have less to keep track of. This made it really helpful for me, and I highly recommend doing this type of pre-production. Remember that as much as you can do before you start making the film, the better. Plan as much as possible. Have room to wiggle on the day, but the more you plan beforehand, just the better everything's going to turn out. The only thing we didn't plan for was these like kind of ridiculous windstorms we're getting in Oklahoma right now. It's like the Dust Bowl around here. And so the audio did not turn out very well. We did not have the right mic and set up for the amount of wind that we had. But I will be doing some ADR, I'll be doing some Foley to go fix all that. So it's gonna sound nice and crispy, which is fine because I didn't rush this. I'm able to now go through and redo those audio bits, really make the film better in that way and not have to stress it too much. But I kind of wish I just would have got the audio on the day. So far the rough cut is coming together. I'm really having fun with it. I'm really excited to show everyone everyone. This one is one of the more fun ones I think that I've made in a while, but it's not quite done. We still have some VFX to be done. That audio work has to be done. Just some overall polishing, and then we'll be able to release it here on the channel. So it's all coming together. I am just being a filmmaker. It's just that simple. You don't have to wait for Hollywood to call. You don't have to move to LA. Wherever you live, just start making stuff. Make it with an iPhone. Make it with a mirrorless camera. I know I'm using like big lights. I have access to my own grip van and the lighting packages and the nice lenses, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I could have shot this on anything and it still would have been a pretty fun project. All I'm trying to say is you don't have to wait around to go make stuff. Just go make stuff. So now I'm in the editing process and I'm able to see what holes are in the edit. What more things do we need? So when I do go out with just the skeleton crew to kind of get a couple more audio bits and a couple more shots, I know exactly what I need to put in there. So I feel like if you really break up your shooting, right? You know, you shoot a scene, you edit that scene, you kind of see what you need, and then you can go shoot another couple scenes and then see what you need from there. And really let your film grow and change. Maybe when you're shooting, you thought that tonally it was gonna go one way, but then it started to feel like it kind of pushed this way a little bit, and maybe it makes more sense to lean into that now, right? And then you can add additional shots. Another thing I've learned is like, don't compromise. If you've shot something and you don't love it, there's no rush, right? Just maybe get together a little crew and go out and redo the shot. You know, I really wish I could have redone the opening sequence of my last short film, Flea. That shot just does not compare. It does not do what it needed to do compared to the rest of the film. Why did I not go reshoot that? It's probably because I spent a lot of money and time getting that first shot, and even though it didn't fit, I still put it in the film because I just didn't know how to let go of that attachment. So that's something I would definitely recommend, is just let the thing breathe and change things if you need to. There's nothing set in stone when it comes to making a film. You can always kind of start over. So take your time and make something that you want to watch. If you feel like you're catching something in the edit that you don't like, change it. Pretty simple, but it is something that I've had to work on myself. Okay, so the film should be coming out here very soon. I'm really excited to share it with everyone. It'll be another behind the scenes that will be released with it. We'll talk about more of the technical details of making the film, so stay tuned for that. But before we go, I do want to thank this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. Start a completely personalized website with Design Intelligence from Squarespace. Design Intelligence empowers anyone to build a beautiful, bespoke digital identity to use across your entire online presence. Maybe you want to start an online store to sell your photography or other products. Squarespace has the built-in functionality to get one of those up and running quickly. I've actually been using Squarespace to run my online stores for almost a decade now. And of course, if you're like me, you're probably looking to build a portfolio, which Squarespace has tons of features for that very thing. You can even create private galleries for client work using these tools. As you acquire work through your website, you can now collect payments using branded invoices, manage client info, feedback, and payment activity all in one place. So if you're looking for a home for your work, you can do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video.